All right, welcome back. 3 Aurora police officers are now out of a job because of this photo of these officers mocking Elijah McClain's death. So what's next here? Can these officers fight this termination? Are they done for? Our 9 News legal expert Whitney Traylor joins us live now. It sounds like, according to what the chief was saying during this press conference, these officers are done for, Whitney. Is this it? Can they try to fight this through their legal process here?
It's a good question, and the answer is yes, they can. They have appeal rights. So as public employees, their job is deemed a property right. And so before their life, liberty, or property is taken, they're entitled to certain due process. So in this case, the due process is one, they first were given 10 days, excuse me. They were notified that they were going to be disciplined, and they were given 3 days to respond. Now that they've been terminated, they actually have 10 days to submit an appeal. From that appeal, they'll actually have a hearing. And from that hearing, they even have appeal rights beyond that. So in this case, yes, it's not over if they choose to appeal.
Okay, great. Thanks for that answer there. I think that clears up a lot of things here that we've been wondering about. The FBI and DOJ have been reviewing Elijah McClain's case since last year. Could a potential civil rights investigation have impact on these officers here in the future?
Possibly. So these officers are looking at something different than the officers that were involved in the actual death. So here, I think they were charged or they were terminated for conduct unbecoming. So with the civil rights investigation, and there's, I think, 4 different entities doing that, certainly they could find information that could have an impact on these officers that were just terminated, and possibly that could affect their appeals if they appeal. However, most of what they're looking at in terms of the civil rights issues, they seem to be related to the death. But again, these folks will share the results of their investigation, and so there could be some facts that come out that impact these officers that were just terminated.
So during this press conference, I noticed the chief make it a point that she was facing some legal kind of constraints here when it came to the release of these photos. They've been investigating these photos for a week now before releasing them since last Thursday. Can you explain the legal aspects of why they had to wait to discipline the officers here before making these photos public?
Yeah, so my understanding is that Aurora has an internal policy that they don't release the results of the investigation until it's over. And actually, I actually thought it was until the whole appellate process was over, which could be months. It could go even beyond that. It could be years. So here, I actually think it was an internal policy, but the fact that they released everything, what they release now, I'm not sure if that's everything they have, but they certainly wanted to wait until the investigation was done. And I'll tell you that I've done these various investigations dealing with public employees and things like that. This was extremely fast, and I think the interim chief, she wanted that to happen. So the results of the investigation actually came down very quickly.
Whitney Traylor, we really appreciate your expertise on this matter. Thank you for your time joining us here on 9 News. Thanks for your
Sure thing.